Check, mic check, 1, 2.
Yo, is this thing on or what?
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Platform Podcast. As always, I'm your host, DJ Dex, and today we're sitting down with a little bit different field, one that we haven't gotten into yet with any of our guests, sitting down with the audio engineer, sound engineer, somebody that does it all at Whiskey Row, here with James. James, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. I'm excited to finally get here and talk a little bit about music, life, and just kind of Nashville and all this other crap that we get ourselves into. I mean, there's so much behind the scenes that people don't realize, and I don't think they understand. So,
the understanding is definitely going to be a big part that we're going to dive into in this episode, because I feel like so many people just kind of walk into nightclubs and bars and everything is running fluid, and they don't really see what all goes on behind the scenes, everything that you guys do, especially here in Nashville. I've noticed a lot more. But yeah, we're going to dive into kind of how you got into the field, that what we were just talking about of everything that goes into it inside of these venues at different events that you're running, the workload that comes with it too. I mean, like you said, we kind of took a little bit to get this episode going, because either I'm getting booked to DJ or you end up being booked to work a night. So It takes a while.
Or I'm on tour. I just got back from Montana Saturday. I ended up right back in the club doing lights for Reese and his opener Mojo. And it's just it's nonstop. I don't think people realize all the tiredness and all the time you put into this job. And music's not easy. Any artist will tell you, any DJ, any audio tech, engineer, you name it, booking agent, it's a lot of free time. You miss a lot of stuff in your life. And it kind of reminds me of the military a little bit, where you don't always get to go to certain events because sometimes work is priority. And if work's priority, then that's all that matters.
So let's talk a little bit about kind of how you got started. You went to school for it, or did you pick this up in the military, or what?
Actually, I started when I was a kid. So my dad had a band growing up, and I can actually say I was born into music.
Yeah.
I was my dad was telling me, and my mom used to tell me stories. When I was a little kid, I used to sleep next to my dad's amp, which maybe explains some of the hearing issues. But it was just something I always did and always had a passion for. And then it was something I fell out of for a long time. I didn't even listen to music probably for 2 years.
Okay.
In high school, it was there, but it wasn't a focus. I was focused on doing other shenanigans and trying to play hockey and all that. And then I ended up going back into music when I moved back to Iowa. I really dove into it and kind of just put all my thoughts and efforts and all my time into becoming something in music. If it was playing or engineering or something around music or entertainment. And that's where I've always found most of my happiness in life. I've tried the construction, I've tried sitting in an office, but nothing is more loving than, or nothing's more that warm feeling you get being successful into music. So I've always knew how audio worked, and I already had a big kind of love for it, and it just was something that I just dove into. I just said, fuck it, let's do it. It was all or nothing. I'm either gonna be successful or I'm gonna live down by the river in a van. That's it. There's nothing I'm going out from there.
So where did you go to school for everything?
So at first I went to business school in 2014, and it was really to play hockey in Chicago.
Okay.
And then I kind of got suspended because of financial aid reasons, and private schools are awful for that.
Yeah, they want their money now.
Yeah, and they don't help you out. You pay or you get out. That's kind of how it was. And then I went to school for radio and broadcasting and online media, and I was editing and mixing commercials on the fly for our little radio station at home. And I did some work through the school radio station. I'm creating commercials within 30 minutes. You get these, stems, and you're they want it perfect, but you only got 20 minutes to make it perfect.
So you're on that tight of a timeline for it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Really?
At times. And that they did it, I think, more to show us hey, how hard can you work under pressure? And I was like, you know what? I think I got this. Like, this is something I can, do. And this is something that I know is for me. And then I ended up moving to Michigan with an ex, and there was no work in music. So I was like, you know what? I got to make money. So I ended up in construction. Then I moved out to Iowa with her. We broke up, started working in a bar. And then I was like, I need to go back to school. Like, there's so much I have not learned, and there's so much I want to learn. So I ended up going to SAE Institute in Nashville for my associates. And it's kind of just fell in working with Tin Roof for a while. And they gave me an opportunity. And then Ryan Walega gave me a call one day. I was like, hey, we heard good things about you. Let's get you to Whiskey Row and see if we can get you some part-time hours, see how you fit with the crew. And ever since that, now I'm here.
So Whiskey Row has definitely been your home base, and just kind of talk about getting that opportunity to get in there and how it started. Because when you're talking about you working at a venue, what, from an outsider's perspective, what are we looking at from a day-to-day of what you're doing at that venue?
Man, well, really a lot of it's just overseeing everything, getting bands down on time, on downbeats, making sure DJs are set, make sure people are showing up on time, making sure the venue's happy with you, like, make sure management's happy with what's going on and the things that you are doing, and like making sure it's not too loud or too quiet, making sure like there's a vibe going on at all times, some lighting, getting people really involved and wanting to stay, right? Like, you can only keep someone in a venue for so long by name. You have to really give them the entertainment. And so that's the big thing, right? That's where we, as engineers or lighting guys or whatever, girls, whatever you are, techs, you got to really kind of like be able to get people to feel the music, like a DJ does. You got to get the crowd involved, right? You got to build them up, take them down, build them up, take them down, and then crush them at the end and make them like really like, wow, that was the best experience I've had here.
Yeah, just taking on that journey is what it kind of, I always think of it as a DJ. You can't just fucking go in and just go with banger, banger, banger for 4 hours. Like, people need that time to breathe. And I feel like here in Nashville, with bands coming in and out, that's something that a lot of people don't think about, is that kind of time lapse between one band to the next, where it's like you guys have to be ready to switch something on. You got
30 minutes to get one band off stage and another band sound checked and going. And like, we don't sound check front of house. Like, we sound check within our in-ears. So like, we're hoping when we switch to the front of house mix, it's going, like, it works. Cause if not, we're screwed. Like, it's once you build like a basic scene, or like, you get the room down, it doesn't take much time. Like, I can get a good mix in within 30 minutes where it's very like comfortable to the crowd. But I also have times where it takes me an hour and a half into the show to really dial in what I need, and things change, weather changes, it could be super hot during the day, but get cold at night. So that changes your mix, right? Like, weather predicts a lot in our life.
How so? Like, what do you mean in that
frequencies,
aspect?
Man. Like, so you got 20,000 frequency. Like humid. Like, if it's humid out, which we deal with a lot of humidity, and Nashville is not great for music or like musicians and like gear. Like, it's really not good for the gear, I would say, because of our weather so everywhere. So like, you gotta like, when it's super hot out, all this high frequencies are gonna take off in your, 2,000 to 20,000 range. Where like, when it's super cold out, from 60 to 500 hertz is going to take off. Like, you're going to have problems in that area. And like, it's really just like studying on how the sound is going to travel in those different weather. Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's a lot of math. Like, I hated my one math teacher, and I can't remember her name, but I kind of wanted to give her a shout out, because she always told me I was going to use math and everything. And I was good at math in school. Like, I could not show up to class and not do homeworks, but man, those tests I would crush. I would get like 80-90% A's and B's in math just showing up. And she told me I'm always gonna have math in my life, and I'm like, nah, that's a lie. Like, come on. No, she's right. And kind of give her a shout out for that. I didn't like her personally wise, but she definitely, like, it really started showing up when I did construction, but like with music, it really like, and learning lighting has really like, I've used a lot of algebra and a lot of geometry, and then like, I'm like, man, this sucks. She was right.
So when you're talking about mixing and being accommodating to the different weather and stuff, is that something that you think that the general public hears as much as you, or no?
No. I think most of the time the general public just hears noise.
Yeah.
Right. And if it sounds good and they can feel it, right? Like, you know, the whole country thing, like I learned, and I had to learn this when I moved to Nashville, was people want to feel the kick, people want to feel the bass, and they want to hear vocals. Mm-hmm. Everything else just falls into place. As long as they can hear the guitar solo, they're happy. And like that really changed my way of mixing, and like, because I was more like a rock, pop, punk, emo kind of like, just make it sound good and get the crowd in and like make it grungy, whatever.
Yeah.
But like coming out here, I really had to focus on like my mixes into like really deep details where it's like, hey, like I hear things that most people aren't going to hear, but my ear is trained to hear it, right? It's not that they can't, they just don't know what they're looking for.
Exactly.
And it took me years to figure out what I was looking for. It's still like, I still go back on some of my mixes. I'm like, oof. That I did that and people thought this was good. I'm like, that sucked. But like, it's just getting, you know, it's just learning. It's like learning what sounds should sound like and learning what like you're looking for and what the musician's looking for and the crowd is feeling, right? Like you can change a whole crowd with a band just by the way it sounds. Mm-hmm. Like people don't realize, like you might not think about it as the general public, but if it doesn't sound good, you're not into it. Where if it does sound amazing, you're like, man, this is awesome. Like it's all about a vibe and it's all about creating that vibe for the audience.
Yeah, and that's what's going to make you stay there and spend more money and drink and hang out is if that band is sounding good. But it's funny that you said all that because I, even being here, don't necessarily always think about how much work goes into getting one band on while another one is getting off and switching out all the instruments, getting everything checked, and just kind of how much is on those stages of just like the microphones that are connected to all the band's in-ears so they can get in the mic and say, hey, this is what song we're playing next. And that's something I picked up on just being in Nashville or being on stage with those bands as they're getting off and like a DJ is going on, where I'd never really realized prior that they just have like mics connected to their in-ears and that's how they're communicating like, hey, this is what we're going to play next. And it's just kind of crazy just like walking around on a stage and seeing how much shit is hooked up miking wise to above every drum, above all the different, like in the different kicks and all that kind of shit is fucking wild.
Yeah, like there's so many ways you can mic a drum set, and none of them are wrong necessarily. Some are more like predominant for like the venue you're in or whatever. Like we don't need overheads downtown. Like you really don't. Maybe at Kid Rock's because you're so high above. Bigger,
yeah.
But ways you can like instead of using overheads, like a lot of like new way of mixing is they're doing all clip-on mics for cymbals. So every cymbal has its own EQ and own mic and like the own compression and all that. So like that's kind of like the cool part is like learning different styles. Like everyone has their own way of doing things. Mm-hmm. Everyone uses their own type of mics. Some people use the very expensive mics. Other people use the very cheap mics, and they get really good sounds out of all of them. And learning which gear works best for you. Like, we use a lot of Midas M32s downtown. Why? Because they're the prominent cheap. They're $5,000 board that works really well. They have a good interface when it comes to the iPad. Like it has network compatibility. Like, but then you go on tour and you got Avantis. You got these SL5s from Yamaha. You got all these Avid rigs, Digico, and they're just so complex. But really, they're not. They're all the same stuff. It's just different layouts, a different interface.
Yeah.
But you can tell the quality of sound out of them is so much better.
On those more expensive ones that are a little bit more complex.
Yeah, and you got more channels to mess with.
Yeah.
Like you got Some boards you got up to 128 front of house channels with like 48 buses out. I mean, you're running like 3 different digital snags, but it's all registering into one scene where, Midas only gives you 40 in and 8 or 16 out.
So how do you differentiate that when you're going from a place like a Whiskey Row to then, like, who are you on tour with recently?
So I was on with Ziana Road. They're like a local band in like South Dakota, but they're like, a lot of them play downtown.
Yeah.
And like, they're great people, but we did like a very nice wedding and stuff, which even those I think are harder than some of the arena tours you do or like venue tours, is just because like weddings are very particular in how they want things. And I ran Allen and Heath QU24, and it's a smaller, cheaper board from Allen and Heath, but it's a great board. A lot of people use it still for like touring and stuff.
Yeah.
So it really, like when I go with boards, it's kind of like what I know best, what's going to work for me, how I can get a really good show in no time dialed in if I don't have a sound check, and then making sure I can navigate it fast enough to cut the time of feedback or cut the time of it not sounding the way I need it to sound.
Yeah, and just being able to adjust it on the fly that much quicker.
Yeah, so,
okay.
And like I do is like I always try to like, if I know I'm going to go on the road with the band, I try to find out everything out they're using. Like definitely board, like gear wise I can get around, but board for sure, because I will study it. Like I'll be on YouTube University and be like, hey, looking up YouTube videos on why and how it works. Or I'll read the manual and like skim through it and be like, oh, that's how you do that. Oh, that's how that fader works. Oh, that's why that fader only highlights when I press this button.
Gotcha.
Okay, that makes sense. Like, oh, this is how the routing works. Perfect.
Yeah, because even the majority of the equipment that you're talking about, I mean, most of the people listening are going to have no fucking idea of all the names and stuff. But even like for me, I think about it going into a DJ set and not knowing the equipment and just how awful that would be for you as a DJ. But especially with sound and audio engineering, I feel like there's 1,000 more options where it's like DJ equipment, like I would be confident with whatever. Like I know everything more than well enough that I know if it could be whatever walking into, I'm going to be fine with it. Whereas for you, just naming off 10 different things, and if you don't know what you're walking into, like if you don't know what the band is using, you could just be fucked away.
Oh, yeah. I've had situations where I walked in and it was a full analog rig, and I'm like, dude, I haven't touched analog since studio days, like 4 years ago, 3 years ago. And you make it work. A good engineer will always figure it out, right? And I feel like even if a good engineer doesn't hear the best or has the most knowledge and experience, but they're always consistently learning and talking with other engineers and really just soaking up ideas, right? Like you could tell me how to DJ a room that you've played 100 times. And if I don't listen to you, I'm not going to be able to keep that crowd. Where I can, you go into a venue and the systems engineer or the venue engineer is like, hey, like, this is what you need to look out for. Like 2K pops out, 400 pops out. And if you go, oh, fuck you, I know what I'm doing.
Once you hit those different frequencies, you're going to fucking pop.
You're going to find, you're going to find out the hard way.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes like in our industry, you got to be very versatile and very open to like people. Because, some of it you take as grain of salt and you're like, whatever, dude, like, you're just over exaggerating, or maybe you hot gain too much. And that's the big thing, is people hot gain too much. But that's a studio thing. People learn in studios before they go live a lot of times. And hot gaining is the number one thing to do. And then that's why they're causing all these problems. And then like, or you come into a venue, and I've had this before where I've went into 1 or 2 venues and I come in, I mix it, and it's the best sounding they've ever heard. Like, and that engineer gets like not upset, but kind of like butthurt about it. And it's like, dude, and I always explain, I'm like, hey man, I work in Nashville. I work at one of the busiest bars downtown. Like I work for one of the most prominent companies coming up, Jam Factory. Like our standard is insanely high.
Yeah.
Like we don't hire people who aren't going to fit well. We're not going to hire somebody who is mediocre. We want the best and only the best. And like, even if that takes some time to make you that way, that's fine. It's just, you have to be like, the standard is set high. Like, you can't have a low standard. And I think that's when I do go into other places, they're like, they look at me like, damn, like they get, I don't know, embarrassed or anything, but it's just like, it definitely hits your ego.
Yeah, it's kind of just like you're like, not that you're trying to at all, but it's like you're shitting on their job because you do it so much better. Like you're making them look bad in a way where you're just doing it how you do, and it's the standard, like you said, that you're living up to, where your work is going to speak for itself. And if you do a shitty job of mixing and the sound quality coming out sounds like ass, that reflects back on you.
Yeah. And that's what I tell people. Like, some people, they only do it like maybe 3 times a weekend. And I'm like, dude, I do this 16 shows a week on average. Like, one, it's not great for my ears, and I can't hear well half the time. Everything sounds muffled. But like, at the same time, it's like, dude, I do this all the time. Like, this is all I study. This is all I really know. This is all I can really talk about now. Like, I just get the experience, and that's really where like it breaks down. Like, when you go on the road or when you're like at other states or other venues, it's like, hey, dude, like, don't take this as a negative thought. Like, I do this every single day, 52 weeks a year.
Yeah.
Like I'm always around it. Like, and I think that's like some of the thing is like, when you're in other places, it's like they look at you and they're like, oh, but only the best really comes to Nashville. You got really good engineers in LA. You got really good engineers in New York. You got good engineers all over. But when you're not around it 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, you're not getting the experience, or you're not getting the practice. Right?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say, is the experience that you get in 1 week is probably equivalent to what a lot of people get in like a month.
Yeah.
With the hours that you put in, the different in and out that you're doing with bands, DJs, everything like that. Even learning different lighting programs that are coming in at different venues, like Whiskey Row's shit. When I'm DJing there and you're just sitting there, have an entire screen in front of you, and it just looks so confusing.
Funny story is, I got thrown into that with no knowledge. I had to learn Grand MA, which is like the #1 lighting program for everything now. And like, I got to thank my buddy Austin Strain and stuff, because he's a hell of a LD, and he's out with Jelly Roll right now. But like, he actually helped me. He came in and helped a lot and reprogrammed some stuff for us, and it was great. Like, he's amazing, smart kid, young, very smart, and like, he's helped me with so many troubleshooting incidents from just a phone.
Yeah.
But like, also just, again, YouTube University. I tell you, YouTube, man, it's a curse and it's a blessing at the same time. But like, it was just learning it on the fly and like making mistakes, and having DJs understand like, hey, this guy is new, let him make his mistakes. And because like, the DJs want it dropped at a certain time. They want certain color patterns. They want certain lights, certain designs that you can come up with. But at the same time, it's like, dude, I don't know what half this means. Like, I haven't been in a club since I was in college. Like, so it's a lot. Like, but you have to study your craft, right? Like, you can't be a good DJ if you don't practice at home, like, or keep up with the music. Like, I know you don't probably want to listen to some of the songs you got to play all the time because you're so burnt out on them.
Yeah, because you've heard them or played them 1,000 times already.
Right.
But if at the same time, I mean, it works.
Yeah.
And more importantly, that's what other people want to hear. And it's not, for me, it's not about me as a DJ. I'm not up there playing what I want to hear like I would if it were to be, let's say, like an artist set where I can play my own music and do whatever the fuck I want. Where when I'm playing at a venue like Whiskey Row, I'm playing what the crowd wants to hear.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's what it comes down to, is kind of like learning that side of things and learning to play to that room, where, to what you're saying, from you being there all the time, how to play that room as far as sound and lights go.
Yeah, and I mean, I've even have like when we like do some of the DJs when they open, they'll ask me questions about like, hey, what should I play? What should I play? And it's like, kind of I always tell them, feel the room, like kind of explore, see what you can get away with too. Like, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm not saying that like, oh, cause trouble, but like there might be a new song that came out that no one's heard of. Try it, see if it feels the crowd. Like, you know, OMG Parker and I did a mix together in the studio, and we're like, we thought it was gonna hit, and it didn't. And it's like, damn, it's kind of like devastating. You're like, fuck, I've worked so hard.
Yeah.
Honestly, we only worked like an hour on it, so it wasn't that bad. But like at the same time, like sometimes you got to explore that, but you also got to learn like what's working, what's not, you know. And like even in like the tech world, you got to learn what, like things change every single day, right? Like everything is changing, and technology is getting better, and with AI, and you got to learn all that. Like you got to learn how AI works. You got to learn how, you know, audio is working, lighting is working, new techniques, new designs, like new styles. Like you can't just do the same thing over and over again. You got to put a little different into it, like any craft you do. So like I think that's what makes it more interesting, and I think that's what makes me like love it so much is I'm always learning something new.
Yeah.
As when I think I know something in music or in lighting, I'm learning 3 new things the next day. It's like, oh my God. And because like people are like, oh man, you're so good. I'm like, nah, I'm okay. I'm not gonna like, come on, you know, stop being so hard and stuff. I'm like, no. Because the minute I think I'm good or I'm great is the minute that I'm failing myself. So I have to, you know, stay on that grind all the time to get better. Like,
yeah, because otherwise I feel like there's somebody else that is learning more, where if you think that I'm at the top, I don't need to learn anymore, someone else is going to be taking that time to learn more details and get a little bit better.
Oh yeah, and you know, and it's always a good feeling when a band or like a DJ is like, man, that was a killer show, like killed it, or like, hey man, it sounded great in my ears, or it sounded great in front of house, and you're like, cool, but it wasn't good enough, right? Like, and that's where my thing is.
That
like,
just comes from you being hard on yourself.
Yeah, I'm my self-critic. Yeah. Like, I had to go to therapy on how bad it was. Like, I never thought I was good enough at anything. Like, I could have the best hockey game played in the world with a hat trick and 3 fights and 5 assists, and I'd be like, yeah, it wasn't good enough. Like, same with audio and music. It's like, I wasn't good enough. Like, that show wasn't good enough. I had feedback this time where, oh, man, the bass didn't sound like I wanted to. It wasn't crisp enough for me. Or like, oh, I tried something new and it failed. It's like, oh man, that sucked. Like,
which then that goes back to kind of what I was saying before, where that's something that you're going to notice, where the rest of the public would have had no idea. Where then it's like you're just being hard on yourself for something that no one in the crowd would have any idea at all. Oh
yeah. So I went into Whiskey Row the other day, and we got some new engineers, and they're killing it. And I like when they're killing it, I let them know, because that's, you know, nothing ruins an engineer, nothing ruins a musician more than just negative energy. Like, yeah, you kill engineer's self, like their confidence, it's over. Like, that's hard to recover from. Just like a DJ, just like, you know, a musician, anyone. Like, you really destroy their self-confidence. It's hard to come back from that. And I've been there multiple times where I'm like, someone would be like, oh, it wasn't good enough. And I'm like, oh, I suck. Like, maybe this isn't for me. But I came in the other day and I was listening to my mix, and one of the engineers was using it, and I was like, awesome. I'm like, sounds pretty good and stuff. They're like, oh, it's yours. I'm like, oh, this doesn't sound good to me then. And it's not that he did anything wrong. He didn't even touch it. But for me, everyone was enjoying it. Everyone's like, man, this sounds really good. And I'm like, this sounds off to me. Like, there's something wrong, and nothing was touched. But it's me criticizing my own work. Like, my biggest thing I always hated to do was listen to myself after I've done anything. Like, if it's talking, if it's recording, if it's live sound. Like, I've only been proud of maybe like 2 or 3 mixes in my entire life where I can go back and be like, man, that sounded incredible. And then same with like being on a hockey podcast when I was back in Chicago and radio, like in production school for radio and stuff. Like, I listened to some of those old podcasts. I'm like, oof. I know we're amateurs, but damn, like.
That's how I feel when I go back to listen to like when I first started doing these. And I'm just like, damn, like the way that you phrase the questions and just kind of your mannerisms throughout an episode just pissed me off.
Yeah, but you know what? It's a learning thing, and you can like sit here and we're laughing, and I'm smiling about it because like being your self-critic is probably the hardest thing, right? Anyone who says, "Oh, I'm the best," or "I'm doing this," or "I'm great," even if you are, you're still like being cocky and conceited, and that's okay to a point. In my eyes, like it's okay to be cocky once in a while, and there's times where I'm like, "No, I know I'm good at my job." But then there's other days where I wake up and I'm like, man, I don't think I'm as good as I thought I was.
Or just needing to get better at it too.
Yeah.
Like as far as DJing, like I definitely do not think I'm anywhere near the best, especially listening to all the DJs that are on my mix show every week and that I've heard out live. It just always makes you want to get better and better.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to.
Oh, yeah. And that's like the thing too, is like, it's a great feeling when like Reese, Parker, you come up, Mojo, Tanner, Diesel, any of you guys come up to me and are like, hey, like, that was awesome, thanks. It's like, man, I felt like that was the worst lighting show I've ever done. Oh, that was rough. Like, I missed a few important drops.
That's so crazy to me because I would never know that it was like that impactful on you and your mind.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
I had no idea and I've never even thought anything negatively about it. I guess it always just runs smoothly for me. Like every time I'm there, where I'm just always like, all right, this is perfect. Like,
yeah. And maybe it's like, because not a lot of places are doing it that way in Nashville. It's more of a Vegas style setup now, which, you know, in Vegas, but everything in Vegas is time coded, right? Like a lot of that is all like, when Steve Aoki's on stage, that's all.
Yeah, it's all a set
time.
that's already.
Yeah, it's all synced.
Yep.
Right, and that's not taking from one of the best producers, and he's actually a hell of a drummer, by the way.
But it's not somebody doing it live like you're having to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, but it's a lot of work between, right? That's where the behind the scenes come in, right? No matter what show you're doing, even if it's synced, time coded, whatever, for music, audio. You know, you're on Ableton, you're on all these programs, time syncing lights, time syncing audio, backtracks. That's hours, if not days of work, of mastering, of many parties working together. You got master engineers, you got lighting techs, you got lighting designers, you got audio engineers, you got front of house monitors. We're all working together to make an hour and a half show, a 3-hour show, a 4-hour show, whatever, you know, reign of music you're listening to, if it's an EDM show for a 3-hour bit or a 4-hour bit in a club, or if it's a 30-minute show in Nissan Stadium or Bridgestone, all that is all the footwork of getting ready, like going on tour, like getting all the equipment set up, making sure sound checks are great, making sure you got something built in a lighting scene or audio scene or whatever, like a show file, that you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Like, and on a moment's notice, you're going to have to change something on the go. Like that, all that is playing in effect. Like there's been issues like where something goes down mid show and the crowd has no idea that we just lost a bass channel. And now we're figuring out if it's a line, if it's the bass, if it's a battery that goes out, right? Like there's times where I've jumped on stage mid-show and I'm grabbing someone's ass, getting the pack off of them to change their batteries or scanning for an RF signal that's better. Like, and people are like looking at like what's
like,
going on.
what is this guy doing on stage?
Yeah. It's like, dude, you don't, or like my buddy Matt Davison, who plays for Travis Denning, he was playing Whiskey Row a couple weeks ago. It was probably maybe a month ago now. His pedal board went down first song. Just shitted on him.
So what do you do to fix that then? I mean, you can't, you literally have to find a whole new pedal board somewhere or what?
It's either we fix that pedal board on the go, we take out the problem if it's a bad pedal, a bad power cable, a bad 1/4 inch, or a bad wireless, and we go hardline, or we run straight to the amp and we make the show go on and we'll figure it out as we go. You know, we got most of his board back up and we figured out like his wireless cable was bad going into his guitar, so we had to hardline it. And then we had 2 bad power cables.
Okay.
You know, but so we kind of like rigged it together we
But
Jimmy
it
rigged
takes
together.
a couple minutes to do all that shit.
Right?
Yeah.
And we luckily, there's a few songs out there that's all bass driven.
Yeah.
So the bass, drums, and vocalists, female vocalist took over the show while me and Matt are fixing his stuff. Mm-hmm. But at the time he was frustrated, yelling and not happy. And I was like, dude, just calm down. Like, he's yelling at me because I can't figure it out right away. And he's like, dude, that's fine because I know how to I handle those situations. But at the end of the night, he came up to me and goes, if it wasn't from you, we're fucked.
Yeah.
So
especially because they're probably there for what, a 3-4 hour set?
4-hour set. Yeah. Most likely 3.5 hours minimum. Mm-hmm. And that's the little things that I don't think people understand. Even sometimes musicians do when they're in a professional environment, they do. Same with DJs. When you're around it a lot, you guys recognize that stuff.
Yeah.
But the average crowd doesn't understand that. They don't get that. All the behind the scenes is so fucking hard to deal with at times. And people, we stress just as hard as a musician does getting ready for a show. Man, there's times where I'll go into lighting for the night and I'm like, man, I'm going to try something new. And it either hits or it just fails miserably. It's a crash burning.
Well, I also feel you never know, technology, you never know. It could fail at any time. And it's not anything that has to do with you, but it literally, a light could stop working. Or like you said, someone's pedal board could go out.
Which we have, we have lights that are out right now that we're waiting on getting fixed.
Yeah.
But also we are, the other night, lighting computer went down.
Yeah.
And we lost
the
our
whole computer?
Yeah, we lost our IP
address
shit. To the node. And the node is which sends all the
powers
signal.
Yeah,
that sends all the signal through the DMX to the lights and stuff from the computer. And we went offline. I had no idea why.
Did all the lights turn on when it goes off or no?
No, they all shut off.
Oh, okay.
So we were blacked out for 30 minutes.
I was like,
it
I've
seemed
seen
30
it work.
minutes. It was maybe 15.
Yeah.
But, if my buddy Austin wasn't at Bridgestone that night running a show, it would have took me an hour to figure out. We would have figured it out.
It just would have taken a lot longer.
But people don't, people are enjoying the vibe. They're enjoying the time. They're not really paying attention, but they are.
Yeah.
And, but that's stressful. That's running back and forth. I had security, create a hole. So I could get in and out. I think I accidentally shoulder checked one of our bottles of girls, which I felt so bad. Anytime I shoulder check someone when I'm in a rush.
Yeah.
And usually when people know I'm rushing like that, there's something going on behind the scenes. And I felt so bad. Anytime I body through someone, and I'm not a big dude, but when I do.
Yeah, especially if you're not expecting it too.
Yeah, then. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. And they're like, no, it's okay. But you're texting management and management's like, hey, what's going on? And you're like, we're down. We're dark 30 for who knows how long. And they're like, yo, how fast can you get this up? You're like, I don't know. That's the worst text message I think I ever have to send to people when I go, I have no idea yet.
Yeah, you're like, we'll find out soon.
Yeah, right.
But
and
you have, I mean, you really don't know.
And you always get that oh, fuck. All professionalism goes out the window at that point with text messages. It becomes personal. You're like, oh, fuck. Godspeed. You're like, thanks for the help.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
But yeah, that's definitely one thing that I wanted to bring up because coming from Milwaukee and Chicago, it's so different being here because I feel basically every venue has audio engineers, sound engineers, they have lighting people, where in Milwaukee, I DJ equipment wise, I'm setting everything up myself, which I think has benefited me a lot because I know how to do all the shit myself. Where then when I go to a Whiskey Row, a bar stool, I can hook all this shit up myself. I know you've seen me just plugging in shit myself upstairs and you're like, oh shit, all right, you're good. As far as running the lights, that's fucking completely different. But I think
hard.
it's so much more beneficial to have that around your venue because there's so many places in Milwaukee that they just have an automated light show. Nothing's timed up to the tempo of the music or obviously timed up to drops and stuff. I've played at venues in Milwaukee where it's they have a lighting board next to you while you're DJing and it's you're playing the track and then you're reaching over and hitting the strobe to go while you're playing. And as far as sound quality, I think that's one of the biggest benefits of having audio engineers, because I can't tell you how many DJs do not know how to limit their sound, which leads to so many venues having fucking blown out speakers and blown out booth monitors, whatever it's going to be, where it just ends up sounding like shit, which is costing the venue money, or then the venue just doesn't even bother to fix it, and then they just have blown out shit sounding speakers.
Yeah, and then it also makes the DJ look bad or the musicians look bad too. And I think that's the problem, right? Like, all right, I'll be honest. I think some DJs and I think some musicians are prima donnas, and I think they're just
100%
fucking bitch.
Yeah.
And it's like, shut the fuck up. You're not that great. Like, I'm gonna put you down. Like, yeah, you're not that great. You're good, but you're not great. So how about you calm your tits? Like, and then
I love that.
But like but also I see their frustration when they're like coming into a venue and there's nothing.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? It's like, I can't tell you. Like, you don't know how many times we're a band or a DJ's like, man, I wish I can afford you if I go on the road. It's like, yeah, I wish you could afford me too, but Nashville's not cheap. You know, rent's not cheap out here, you know? But it's kind of it's that good feeling, right? Though, like, Nashville is music city of the world. It's not music city of the United States or the North American continent. No, it's music city of the world. People from UK come here, and UK is a huge music place, right? Music is big in the United Kingdom and like into like in England, right? But at the same time, some of your best people come to Nashville from all over the world. I've worked with musicians from Australia. I've worked with musicians from Asia, continents. I've worked from people from the Middle East, from everywhere, all who are just great musicians making a living off of it. Yeah. And I think it's harder when you go to a different city and you don't have that. And I think what it is people are so afraid to jump into music because music is so cutthroat and so hard, right? Like, there's times where I'm like, man, I'm not making it. Like, what am I going to do? Like, all right, I'll just go into bartending again, or I'll go into bouncing again. You know, doing something, you know, back to swinging a hammer. And then there's other days where I go and like, I'm like, damn, like, I made it in music. Like, I'm making it, right? I don't think you fully ever make it, but I think you're always making it. And that's kind of where, like, you go to like Milwaukee, you go to Chicago, you go to Montana, you go to, you know, parts of California or parts of the East Coast, wherever, like overseas, whatever, is you don't find people who do it every day, so you don't have the quality, right? You only, like we said earlier, only get good at something if you repeatedly keep doing it and you keep learning, right? You don't have many lighting guys in Milwaukee. You don't have many
That's what I'm saying.
Audio guys in, you know, Milwaukee, or they don't have a budget. You might have some random dude who's like, yeah, I love music, man. I did a little bit in my own house studio, and they can make it sound good, or they can play with lights and they're smart and they're very visual, so they understand how this works, right? I didn't learn by reading a book. I learned by just doing. Yeah. Well, you don't have the opportunities in most places, right? And to get those opportunities is so hard. Like, I have blessed, and I'm very lucky where I'm at today. And I can tell you, I've only been in Nashville for 2 years. And I've been doing things in Nashville that are 5, 6 year, 10-year engineers. Right? Like, most people start as a stagehand, or they start as a grunt in this industry. And I'm a front of house, monitors. I'm doing stuff on tours. I'm doing stuff at my home base at Whiskey Row that people don't really get. They don't get that freedom.
So what is that from? Is that just from the training that kind of Jam Factory has for you? Is that everything from your effort, or what?
Everything. I think it's everything, right? Like, I don't stop. So my biggest problem is I put my career before everything. Like, I put my career before family at times. I put my career before relationships. You know, I'm very, like, I hate to say it, but I'm very money hungry at times too. I like to live more of a bougie lifestyle. I like my Starbucks. I like my fancy smart waters. I like my fanciness, right? You know, I could go back to living dirt poor. Like, that's fine. I grew up that way. But, like, I think it's just putting the time and effort in, And honestly, and as an engineer, as a musician, as a DJ, you're just talented, right? Like, it's a natural talent. You can teach it. But if you don't have a natural ear for it, if you don't have a natural mindset for it, it's very hard to get into.
Yeah.
Right? Like, my stepfather-in-law, whatever you want to call him, he's been trying to play guitar for, I don't know, like 5 years now, 6 years.
Can't figure it out.
And he's not bad, but he doesn't have a sense of rhythm. Mm-hmm. And I could pick up a guitar or an instrument and figure it out in an hour. And I'm not saying that cocky or conceited wise. It's just I have a mind that just figures it out. And there's a lot of people like that. And I think anyone who has talent is like that. And he used to get so frustrated at me. He's like, how can you pick up and just figure out chord progression like that? I'm like, dude, people have natural rhythm and people don't have natural rhythm. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, you can teach rhythm. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of practice. Like, some of these musicians I'm so jealous of because they're so fucking good. So good.
Especially here, man. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah. But, like, that's another thing where it's like, when you learn things, when you figure things out, you just have it. If you don't have it, it's not for you. Like, right? Not everyone can be a good construction worker. Not everyone can be a good salesman or saleswoman. Not everyone can be a doctor. Not everyone can be a nurse. Mm-hmm. Not everyone can be a pilot. Right? I can't fly a plane. I mean, I can maybe learn, but I'm sure hell we're fucking crashing. Right? I'm not a great doctor. I'm not great at scientist. I'm not great at public relations. But the one thing I did get good at was music.
Yeah.
And understanding how music works and just falling in love with it, right? Just like you are as DJ and going to school, you know, and learning the production and doing a podcast, right? Like, you know, the setup is amazing. Like, that's because you're good at it. It's what you're good at. It's your talent. It's like your calling, kind of like. And I've never believed in like callings until I think I went into Nashville. Like, I moved to Nashville music. It's like, no, this is like straight up where I'm at. And like, that's, I think, hard to find for people in other places is they don't have the opportunity. They don't have the money. They don't have the budget, or they don't have the drive. And I think a lot of it is the drive, right? I think a lot of it is wanting to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about putting that career first and kind of being money hungry too, where that's something for me that I think I'm the same kind of way, where it's like job wise, like I'll always say yes to picking up DJ gigs, especially here in like a newer city where you're first like trying to get your foot in the door, and not saying yes to shit that is underpaid or anything like that. But it's like when I get hit up by Jam Factory and they're like, hey, can you do this? Like, even something like yesterday where they hit me up an hour before and they're like, hey, we need you to do this. I'm like, all right, cool. And a lot of times though, it does affect my other half. So like when I'm here with Maddie and it's like a Sunday and you're expecting to just kind of be off all day, but then somebody hits you up to get a shitload of money on a Sunday where you otherwise would have been doing nothing, it's always so hard for me to pass that up.
Yeah. And like the great thing too is having a good support group, right? Anything you do, like, you have to have a great support group, right? Like, if your other half or you don't have support from your friends or family, you know, it's very hard to become successful. Right?
Yeah.
There was a lot of doubters of like, oh, you're going to Nashville to go in music. Yeah, good luck, dude. You're never going to make it. Well, to me, that's great energy. I'm like, fuck you. Watch.
I was literally going to ask. Yeah.
Watch me. Watch me destroy you.
Yeah.
Like, and not because I don't like you. I just want to prove you wrong and tell you, hey, I did it, but let me take your hand and help you too. And that's, I think, the big thing too, is not being cocky or conceited, but also having that drive of like, you got people who hate on you. Man, you see it in the comments, you see it in just around the street, you hear it, but you're like, fuck them. I'm going to do me. Clearly it's working.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make it work even better.
Yeah.
You know, I got people who are like, oh man, that mix sucked. And you're like, you listen to their mix, you're like, it's not any better.
Yeah.
Like, how can you talk shit and then you hear someone's like, hey, this is what I would do, and you listen to your mix, you're like, oh my God, this dude's a fucking genius. And then But it's being able to take that criticism. It's being able to just do it and be confident, right? Like I told one of my buddies in school, I was like, and we were sitting in the studio one day just kind of like helping a friend out. I was like, I think if I don't make it in music, I'm fucked. Like there's nothing in my life that I want more than this.
So thinking like that, do you think that helped push you so much in music where you had no backup plan? Yeah.
Absolutely. I didn't have a backup plan. Like my backup plan was, going back, moving home, working construction with my brother. Do I want to do that? Fuck no.
Yeah.
Nothing against construction. I enjoyed some of it, but I didn't have a backup plan. It was all or nothing. And I went in with that mindset knowing like I could always survive. That's not a problem. Like I have a really good work ethic. I really have a good like moral standpoint when it comes to work and stuff and just doing what I had to do to make bills meet. But my goal was to get so established in this town where I'm okay money-wise and then being able to get that free time here and there and push my career even more.
Yeah.
Like I want to start getting back into producing. I want to start getting into songwriting. Which I'm not a great songwriter, but I have some great ideas, which everyone says in this town, but like not to bash anyone, but it's true though. Like it's hard to, but I just want to do stuff and explore my options and kind of make that, mailbox money too.
Yeah.
That would be nice. But at the same time, my main focus is Jam Factory. My main focus is sitting on Whiskey Jam now. My main focus is making sure Whiskey Row is the best place you can play at in Nashville.
Yeah.
And that's not bashing Aldean's. That's not bashing any other venue or Tootsie's or anything. No, I want people to come to Whiskey Row and be like, dude, you don't want to play anywhere else.
Yeah. Like the entertainment level here is
top,
yeah.
Right? Just like Aldean's wants to do against everyone. Just like Tootsie's does. Well, maybe. Everyone loves to hate on Tootsie's.
I love them. I mean, I know they don't really do like DJs, but as far as music
goes, I love all
yeah.
downtown, man. Every part of downtown has a reason and a story, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, we've talked about that so much on here where it's like, I feel like so many venues look at each other as like competition, and I just don't really see the reason why, as much as just kind of like.
I do for the money aspects because the investors and bottom lines.
Yeah.
And you always want to be on top, but it's more like you should look at it as a competitive thing, right? Like not your enemy, but like I'm gonna do better than Aldean's this week. Let's go. But that means Aldean's should be looking at Whiskey Row, be like, we're gonna do better than Whiskey Row. Like
the same way. Yeah.
Right. It's a competitive thing. Everything is competitive, right? You could be best friends with a DJ or best friends with a musician.
Oh, I feel like my biggest competition is always with my friends.
Yeah, right. You want to be better than them.
Yeah.
And it's not a cocky thing, and it's not like a negative thing in our world. This is how it is in this world. Like you don't succeed on being the nice guy.
I just feel like a lot of people here do it in like a negative way where they're wanting to be better and like shit on them instead of being better as like a friend.
You have some people like that.
Yeah.
But that's, you do and you don't, right? Like, and I think some of that is a self-insecurity, right? Like people who shit on people usually like very self-insecure. Like, I mean, I make jokes about people all the time. I make jokes all the time. Like, I mean, I truly don't hate anyone. Even if I'm not a fan of who you are or what you do, I still want you to succeed in your life.
Yeah.
Unless you're a completely total piece of trash to human society, right? And there's a few people out there that are just awful people, and those are the ones I don't care for. But the ones that are just trying to make it like everyone else in this town or in this world, those are the ones that I always be like, man, I might not like you technically as a person and see you as a friend, but man, I want your career to take off. Because I want to say, hey, that dude started here and took off. Just, and I feel like those are the ones who make it in this town, right? Nashville is a very like loving and welcoming town compared to like LA, Chicago, New York, where they're more cutthroat, which is not a bad thing either. It's not. I'm not talking shit about it, but at the same time, it's harder and it's like I said, your confidence, right?
I've definitely noticed that more in Nashville, just people's openness to help others, especially in the nightlife and music industry. Like, I feel like I could go to the majority of DJs in this town and ask for help with whatever it may be, whether it's producing, whether it's DJing, getting a foot in the door at the venue. And 90% of them are going to be like, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And same thing with like music producers and singers, songwriters, all that kind of stuff. I feel like so many people collaborate and will just like extend an arm out to help whoever in this city.
Yeah. And if you're a good person, they're going to keep calling you. And if you're a bad person and bad negative energy, well, that's going to get around too. Like, but if you change and you really like, you know, come in with an open mind. And I think that's where people fail, is they come very closed-minded in this industry, in our industry. And they kind of, you know, they either do make it, which somehow they do, or they don't. And then they want to blame everything else and blame everyone else for their problems. Like, no, man, like, you got to come in here with the good attitude. You got to come in here wanting to work. Yeah. You want to come in here and you got to risk it all. And hopefully it works. And if it doesn't, figure it out.
Yeah, and you got to pivot and figure out what you got to do to make it work. But yeah, so one thing I definitely want to talk about is something that you touched on before, is making Whiskey Row that kind of top spot. And one of the major announcements that kind of just happened a couple weeks ago was bringing Whiskey Jam on your hat over to Whiskey Row.
Yeah.
That's something that got both a negative and a positive reception from a lot of people, which that was one of the things that I commented on Whiskey Jam's Instagram. And I'm like, people just can't be happy for anything. Like, I feel like it's a positive thing to bring it to a bigger venue, which was needed with the growth that it was having at Winners and Losers. It just, I feel like, needed to be in a bigger venue. And I know there's a lot of locals that might shit on that and think what they want.
I mean, but like we said earlier, you're always going to have that positive, negative comments. And I saw a lot of the negative comments, right? And a lot of negative comments are the ones that pop up on algorithms.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it does that on purpose to get people going and people like responding. But at the same time, even with the negativity, yeah, there's a lot of negativity. And like, I felt for some of the negativity. Don't get me wrong. And we work with them. And I love Whiskey Jam. I love Ward. I love, you know, Whiskey Row. And I love, you know, Ryan Woodlega. Like, I love all those guys. Like, and Ryan in the office. Like, but like, I understand like the negative side of it. And we, you know, don't think no one has.
Yeah.
Right? Making these decisions aren't always easy. And people, I don't think, understand that. Like, there's a lot behind the scenes that no one will ever know. But like, that's how it is. That's how this industry is. That's how anything in work is. Any CEO, company, whatever. You know, I think it's a good move, not just because I work for Whiskey Row and we're partnered with Whiskey Jam now, but I think it's going to open Broadway to original music again, right? I was talking with one of the musicians who's been here, I think, his whole life, and he's an old dog. He's like, people don't realize Broadway was original music for a while before all this happened. And that's where I think it kind of, the positivity of it is bringing original music downtown, is giving downtown a better name, because we're so used to the tourists just kind of shitting on our city and causing mayhem, where locals hate going downtown. And, you know, the prices and all that. But you can go to Midtown now and pay $2 less for a drink. It's same shitty people that you're complaining about that are tourists. Like,
the thing that I think is going to be great is that original music aspect is so much different than what you hear any place on Broadway on the weekend, where you can walk into any bar, and it's similar to what the DJs have to do, where it's kind of like, yeah, you have to appease the crowd that's coming through. These bands have to do the same thing, where they're getting requests from people where it almost makes them end up playing the same set after the same set after the same set. We're bringing in Whiskey Jam to downtown. The format for it is fucking amazing, to just shine a light on these up and coming artists that get to play their own shit. And get to play new original music that you haven't heard, that you can add somebody new to your Apple Music, your Spotify, where you're like, fuck, like this person's great.
And like, I understand like when Whiskey Jam started, it was for the locals to listen to their buddies' bands and stuff. But now that it's growing so big,
They're getting people from everywhere.
Well, they've done tailgate parties for like Luke Combs and stuff. And, you know, they've done national shows, you know, sending people out and like really building a brand in music. You know, why wouldn't you put it in the biggest stage in Nashville?
Yeah.
As much as everyone wants to shit on Broadway, Broadway is one of the biggest stages on Nashville. Some of your best musicians came off Broadway. Mm-hmm. You know, Dierks Bentley played on Broadway. Hardy played on Broadway. Morgan Wallen played on Broadway.
Yeah, I think they're all doing all right now.
Yeah, I think they're
last
doing
time
really
I checked.
good. Yeah. I think they're fine. I think they're set. But I think that's the cool thing about Whiskey Jam moving downtown. And I'm not saying it because I'm part of it. I'm saying it as like an outside thing where it's like, this is opening doors. Like I've talked to musicians about it. Yeah, it's a little rough because driving downtown sucks. We all know that. But at the same time,
I don't really think it's that much different than driving 30 feet away to Midtown, though.
Man,
like to
I had to
winners
walk
and
5
losers.
blocks to get to a Whiskey Jam in Midtown.
That's what I'm saying. Like there's like, I mean, you could take an Uber, it'll drop you off right in front of Whiskey Row anyway, especially on a Monday.
Yeah.
Where like that was one of the main comments that I saw on the Instagram. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like it is not that big of a difference.
And the people who comment the worst negative comments are the ones who barely ever go anyway.
Yeah, they're not even coming.
Right.
Anyway.
And I'm going to call them out. I don't care. I hope that it blows up and people see this.
Yeah.
But the ones who are the most negative, I've found out in the last 10 years of my life,
don't even support it.
They don't even support it.
Yeah.
Like, you're just here to talk shit. Like, go troll somewhere else. Like, I understand some of the complaints of like, man, like it was hard getting in. It was like this, the room's slightly smaller. Okay, I get that. Like, I understand that. Trust me, I would love to have a bigger room. Man, I'd love to have a big ass room at Whiskey Row. You know, but it is what it is. We're stuck with what we got. But enjoy it. Still support. Like, if you can't come downtown for 2 hours to support your friends or support local music, then you never supported it to begin with.
Yeah.
Right? And one of my buddies said that, and he's a prime musician and stuff, and he is a touring musician, and Matt with Davidson said that, and he put it all over Instagram and social media. He's like, people who are complaining right now don't support local musicians. It doesn't matter where it's at. Hell, it could be in some weird alley in the South Nashville. Go support your friends.
Yeah. And
like,
I mean, I think it's going to do a lot better. Plus, like, I don't really know what they have in the works, but I mean, if instead of doing those parking lot style parties, if that's something that they switch to where they end up doing stages on Broadway, that would be fucking insane.
I've heard some rumors about that, and I'm not really going to say it because I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, there's so many great places. You can do it at the Sky Deck.
Yep.
And on top of 5th and Broadway, you can do it on Broadway. I mean, hell, Tootsie shuts down the street every
That's
year.
what I'm saying, yeah.
For a birthday bash. I mean, there's so much support. Like, I mean, so many things have gone down on Broadway. Like,
yeah.
You know, you got so many small, like, amphitheaters around town, too, that are like, walking distance. You got the one on First by the Hampton Social. Like, you got all these,
yeah.
Yeah. You know, you got all these places you can do it. Like, so that's where I think, like, you know, the negativity kind of helps promote it. Because the last two have been busy. And we know you're going to have short crowds, big crowds, little crowds, whatever. Like, you know, you're going to have fluctuations definitely when you do stuff like this. Like, I've been to Losers where there's like 50 people at it. I've been to Whiskey Jams where you're waiting in line for 4 hours. Like, it always changes, you know?
And I feel like, I mean, there's only been 2 right now, right?
Yeah, 2 at
It
Whiskey
just started, yeah.
Yep.
Because it was just Monday and then Thursday, so now tonight will be the 3rd one.
Yeah.
I am very interested to see when a bigger guest shows up too, because that's something that is going to happen at some point, and especially now being at Whiskey Row, I'm not going to be surprised at all when Dierks just pops up. And just hops on and starts playing. And that's the kind of stuff that's insane with Nashville, that you never know
You never know what you're getting.
Yeah, like when just random artists are just gonna kind of pop up.
You can go to Whiskey Row 10 times in a row, and that one time you don't go
Yep.
is when Chase Rice or Dierks Bentley or Cole Swindell or any big artist. Steve Aoki was walking downtown Nashville this summer, and he was like messing with bands and loving it, and like jumped on stage, and people are like, "Oh my God!" It's like you never know in this town, like, and it's crazy. Like it's crazy to be like talking with friends, like, "Oh yeah," they'll be talking about some TikTok influencer or some artist, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I know him," like, or I know her, like. And it's conversation, and you're not bragging. You're just, that's your everyday. And people look at you like, wait, you know Kaylee Green? I'm like, yeah, okay. She's a cool person. Or, oh, you've worked with Dierks? Yeah. I didn't do much with them, but I was there. Like, I was on set with them. They're like, oh my God. Like, they freak out about it. You're like, dude, it's not that big of a deal, man. They're just normal people like us. But it's cool, though. Nashville's really cool about that. Like,
and I think most people in Nashville, that's why the artists have to love it, because I feel like nobody like freaks out to the point that they just can't keep going on about their day.
Yeah.
They just kind of like let them keep living their life, where it's not like in other cities. Like if you're going out of LA, then all of a sudden there's paparazzi and stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, when I worked at Apple, Dierks came in a bunch and nobody bothered him or anything. People would just be like, oh, cool, like that's Dierks, and not going over there and like annoying him and bothering him to the point that he can't just go on about his day. So
yeah, and I mean, Dierks is the one guy who's like a homebody, and like
he's the fucking best.
And like he's a homie, man. Like I just watching him interact with people, take photos with him when he's just trying to enjoy one beer with his team. And it's like, yeah, let take pictures, or like, hey, and like, hey guys, I gotta get going. Like, man walks through the front door of his own bar. He doesn't want, like, he tells security, nah, don't worry about it. And we're like, dude, like,
he, every time I've ran into him, is the nicest dude, one of the nicest people I've ever met. It's awesome, and it makes me appreciate him as a person and an artist so much more when you meet somebody that is that famous and they're still that humble and that down to earth. It just makes you like them so much more.
Oh yeah, and I think that's another thing too. Like even with like Whiskey Jam, like some of these artists are blowing up off.
Yeah,
Whiskey Jam has a hell of a roster for all these awards all the time. On people who were on Whiskey Jam stages and multiple times, like Luke Holmes is a big one.
Yeah, he's
another guy that would go into Tin Roof and like Tin Roof 2 in Franklin, or like in Midtown, and just chill with everybody. Like these, it's like you don't have to do this.
Yeah, just like it's fucking nothing.
You can have your whole crew with you, and have no one go near you, and people understand that. But the fact that like some of these artists and like even sports players in this town, like they'll come in and chill and drink with you. They don't care. Like they're normal people. And I think that's the cool thing about like, I think the hard part with like LA and New York and like even Florida and like Vegas is you have all the attention all the time. So when these athletes or these musicians or these producers or these, famous, people, TikTokers, whatever they are, when they go, it's so stressful because it's already high energy. You got crazy people out there. You got people who are, trying to grab on you, trying to get your attention, and it's like too much.
Yeah.
And that's why I understand when there's blow-ups and stuff. I get it. Like, watch the whole video. And then you got other guys who are like so used to it, or females who are so used to it, that are like, yeah, whatever. Like, it's my life. I signed up for this. And I feel like Dierks is one of those guys where he's just like, just the 2 times I've got to meet him and work with him, he just walks in front door, waves at everybody, and goes about his day, does his thing, walks off. He's Irish goodbyes, and
which I love. That's so fucking
he's
funny.
So good at it. He is the king of Irish
just
goodbyes.
dips out like so nobody fucking notices.
Oh yeah, watch. He's gonna come in now and like, so I Irish goodbye. I'm gonna get called out.
I tried to ask him to be on here when I met him. It was like right before I started this, and I was like, I'd love to get you on here. And he was like, he was just about to go on tour, and he was like, yeah, he's like, if I'm ever free, he's like, I'll do it. I was like,
That's the
all
cool
right.
thing about it. Like and I think he's one of those guys too. Is he's always trying to help the little guy get big, right? Like, and you got a lot of musicians that way. Even if you see the negativity of them, they've never got too big.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to do. I mean, when you're in that, I don't give a fuck who you are. If you're in that fame light for that long, or you are famous and it just comes up new to you, like, yeah, you don't know how to act. Like, it's a new way to learn. Like, it's a whole new different lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I don't think the general public understands that. Like, when musicians or athletes, they have an attitude once in a while, it's not always a personal reason why. It's because they're so used to, it's a lot of pressure.
I feel like it would just be like the constant annoyance of
Yeah.
like never just really being able to go out and not get bothered. But then, like you said, at the same time, it's kind of knowing that, hey, like that's what you signed up for,
Yeah.
but it's still going to get fucking
My
annoying.
biggest thing I tell people is don't bother them when they're eating,
Yeah.
right? When they're sitting down with their family or they're bothering, whatever, or even if they're at the zoo with their family, say hi, whatever. If you can get a quick picture when you get that chance, cool. But don't bother them. Mm-hmm. Let them live their life, because and they'll notice that. And if they notice that and they're like, oh, okay. Like I've worked with artists and stuff and like actors and actresses and stuff where we're sitting in they're sitting in a restaurant and, you know, you wave to them and all of a sudden they come over to you, take a picture with you, give you an autograph. You're like,
Just because you didn't fucking bother them?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because they respect you like that. Walter
Yeah.
Payton did that with my dad. You know, because we all grew up outside Chicago and
Yeah.
stuff. And they went to some of the same restaurants that Walter was at. And my dad never bothered him. And he came up to my dad one time and was like, yeah, here's an autograph. Like, thanks for not bothering me when I was eating. And my dad's like, never. It's like, that's ignorant.
Yeah.
And he's like, thank you. And walked out.
See, that's fucking awesome. But well, let's get into so kind of for you, like right now, working with Whiskey Row, what are you looking for career wise? Is that something that you like? Where's the career path from there? Are you looking at kind of doing your own thing, touring with artists? What's
So that sometimes, if the money is right and I got time to do it, I will. I talked about was I want to not stay in Nashville all the time, right? I get complacent, I get bored, and when I get bored, I don't want to be here, right? That's been my thing my whole life. So when I talked to Ryan, I was like, so I do want to have the freedom where I can go on some one-offs. I can go on some small tour dates. Nothing major where I lose my job or lose my position, but I do want to have time where I do get to explore the world and get to do this in other places. And he's like, yeah, just let me know and communicate. So that's a big thing. And then I think the big thing that we're looking at is, you know, we're always trying to grow. And my thing is I've always wanted to do what Jam Factory's doing. So, and I was like, if it's up to like, you know, like our partnerships or teams, whatever you want to call it, up to the owner, I want to go international with this. Like I want us to be on tours. And like, we come up with great plans on that. And like a lot, without saying too much, but like, that's my thing is I want to make Jam Factory the best place in the world. I don't want it just to be, just a Nashville booking company or small production. I want it to be like, hey, we're on world tours. Like if we're touring with Whiskey Jam, if they get to that point, like whatever we do, I want that. Like, and I mean, I'm sure everyone else does too. And that's the cool part is like, I just want to see it grow, and that's my thing is I love the company I work for, so I can see myself more happy being here, but also being able to do one-offs and work with artists and make a little extra money or tour a little bit just to get that fresh reminder of why I'm here.
So would you mainly want to be like if you're expanding, would you mainly want to be expanding to do artist tours or expanding to different cities to run their venues too, or what would you
really
ideally
all
like?
of it. Honestly, my favorite thing would do is maybe do like some front of house on tours,
Yeah.
but also take over management spots. I have a very like managerial mind. Like sometimes it gets me in trouble, but it's only for the best. like I don't do it for like me. I do it for what I want to see the venue to do, or like for the artist or whatever. But I just would love to just see it go big and just be insanely big and become a great opportunity for new engineers, for older engineers, just for everybody, for musicians, DJs, and just be like, yo, we're doing, say, a Whiskey Jam tour. You know, we're going to hit 50 major cities in the United States, you know, but we're going to need like DJs on this set. We're going to need this on this set. And just kind of like sit down and work as a team and just build something that's incredible and that people will never forget about. Right? Like kind of like leaving a legacy.
I definitely think it's something that's doable too. I mean, with the roster that they have and then the people that you guys could connect with in those different cities, of finding those up and coming artists in each city. I think of something like how for Pitbull, for his tour, I'm not sure if you've ever seen anything from his. He doesn't have the same opening DJ for each tour spot, which I think is awesome. And he's obviously working with like Sirius XM and working with like DJ City, another record pool, and some of their team. When he goes to different cities, his opening DJ is a DJ like from that area.
I was just gonna ask. I've seen some people do that,
and I think that's fucking awesome. Yeah. So like when he came to Milwaukee, he had one of my buddies that's like one of the best DJs in Chicago open for him in Milwaukee, and then like when he played in Chicago, he had like one of the other guys from Chicago open for him there. When he was here, he had one of my buddies from Atlanta open for him here. And then like when he goes to Florida, he has like Kaz from Miami like open for him there. And I think it's such a cool idea to do it like that, because then you're putting on like those DJs from those regions.
Oh yeah.
In every different spot, where it's like they might not have the opportunity to tour with an artist, and he's like, hey, let me bring on these DJs, let me show love to these DJs and put them on in their region, which I'm sure helps bring a couple more fans out too, just to come see them. But that's something that a Whiskey Jam could do very much. I would imagine they could do that easily.
And it gives some of these like B and C artists like a great chance to show them what they have. And like, man, I've seen some shows with these like openers that are better than the actual headliner. Not to push the headliner out or anything, but it's like, damn, like, or like when I went to go see Blink-182, every single band that opened for them, Kenny Lupa and Turnstile, and it was just back-to-back punches in the face. It was so good. Like, and then Blink-182 came out with, I think, their best show ever. And like, you know, definitely tour-wise.
Yeah.
And like, it was just like an amazing night. Like, you can talk about it and you're smiling about it. And I think that's the cool thing about like Whiskey Jam, and I think about like getting that opportunity and like with partnerships and all that and sponsors is like giving these people a chance to put their original music out, giving a chance to putting them on a big stage, giving them a chance to maybe pick up maybe 10 followers, but maybe that 10 followers are going to pick up another 20, right? Like,
yeah,
a lot of this is just algorithms, word of mouth, and networking, right? Like,
and I would think a big part too is going to be the opportunity, of being put in a spot where you're playing a show like that gets you the notoriety of, let's say, people that are opening for Blink, or if you end up doing a Whiskey Jam type tour where that artist 10,000 people might have never heard in their life, and all of a sudden they go to a show to see somebody else.
Yeah.
And they're like, holy fuck, this person was better than the headliner.
Yeah.
And now they just got 10,000 new fans from it. So
yeah. And I feel like that's the cool part about it is like, you know, and just being involved with it is so cool. Like, you get to meet so many fucking cool people. And the pressure is insane. Like, I don't care what anyone says. Like, if you're not feeling the pressure, then you just don't care.
Yeah.
But like the build up to Whiskey Jam, man, me and another engineer, Cody Staggs at Whisker, we put over like 200 hours combined getting ready for Whiskey Jam and making sure Whiskey Row was running at the top.
I mean, you guys had to redo the whole fucking stage.
Yeah. And that took redoing all the cabling, that retook
Yep.
redoing designs and building lighting scenes for this. And it's like, oh, like you don't realize all the work that's put in, and the people don't realize how much it took from everything else. Like, did I have to put those hours in? Technically, no. I mean, I had that choice as a human not to, but I did because I love what I do. And I only want to see Whiskey Jam succeed at Whiskey Row. Not because I work for Whiskey Row, but because it's a great opportunity for this town. It's a great opportunity for Nashville and Broadway and original music and everybody involved.
Yeah, the event is awesome, and it's something that I really enjoy going to. I'm glad that I was put onto it. I got put on by Diesel and Dirty Darren when I first moved here, and they were like, "Hey, you're coming with me."
Oh,
and the first time I went, I was like, "Holy fuck!" Like,
it's crazy.
It's a cool concept.
So we've always worked with Whiskey Jam through Jam Factory because we used to be Whiskey Jam Roadshow.
Yep.
And then Jam Factory bought out the Roadshow and stuff and all that. And just like companies do, you know. And I'd never been to a Whiskey Jam. I went to the Hardy one, and then all that stuff that happened at Losers with the gas line
Roof,
breaking.
yeah.
They kicked us out and didn't let the ones who stayed in. It was a whole debacle. Right? So I was like, man, I'm not going to Whiskey Jam. Whatever. Like, whatever. We're associated with them somehow. I know that, but just number one. Then I went to like a few at Losers, which it was great. It was fun. I went to go see friends play and like really support certain people I really love in this town. And which I support all artists on Whiskey Jam. But there's certain ones I definitely want to go see because they're close friends of mine. And enjoyed it and stuff. And then when they announced it was going to Whiskey Row, which we didn't know about until they told the general public, we had an idea.
I had no idea until I saw it on Instagram.
Yeah, when they said it was their last show at Losers, I actually started laughing. I'm like, fuck, it's coming to Whiskey Row. Like, I just had a gut feeling about it. And then when they announced it, I think the day, that Friday, that it was, I was like, fucking called it. I knew it. Like, in the bottom of my heart, I knew it and stuff. But it was just, it's cool. Like, it's cool being part of, like, even though I'm not working some of them to get some time off for me, like, because I'm always at work.
Yeah, because then you can actually go and see
I can go and enjoy it
Yeah.
and respect it and, like, help my guys out, like, when they do need it, right? Like, you know, it's kind of one of those always being available things. But it's just, I think it's going to be good. I even with, like, all the negativity, and, like, I understand some of the negativity. Some people are, you know, I understand some of the concerns. Some of it was the spacing. Some of it was, like, how is it going to work? Like, with this, like, you know, it's all trial and error at this point. But I think it's going to be very successful, and I really think that it's a great chapter for Whiskey Jam, and that's nothing against Losers. That's nothing against Midtown. But everyone knows Midtown is getting a development project in the next couple of years. Like, you know, when you're stuck in one area for too long, I feel like it kind of gets complacent.
Yeah.
And sometimes change is good and sometimes change is bad, and it's one of those you just got to ride it out. But I really feel good about it, and not because I work for Whiskey Row and work for Jam Factory and work with Whiskey Jam, but I truly feel that it's going to help artists, especially artists trying to get their original music back out. And I don't see anything bad about it. I just,
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. So, but yeah, you got another one tonight, Monday and Thursday. You'll always be able to find Whiskey Jam at its new home at Whiskey Row.
Second floor.
Yeah.
Doors open at 7. I always tell people you come at 7 because open when the doors open because you might not get in past 8.
Oh yeah.
And it's been like that for the 2 days, and we know it's not going to always be like that, but like you never know who's going to show up, man, and that's the cool, like we said earlier in this town, you never know. Like, you never know where this goes, and like, and my thing is like, enjoy it, man. For the ones who don't understand it, go see it, look it up,
Yeah.
Like, if you're not sure what Whiskey Jam is and you're listening somewhere else, look it up, man. It's cool stuff. Like, it's cool merch. It's cool sounds. It's just an awesome vibe. No matter where it's at. It could be in a basement of someone's house. It's still going to be fun. Like, it's Whiskey Jam. And, like, enjoy people's, like, original music. And, like, if your friends are playing and it's $10 to go see your friends, spend the fucking $10 and go see your friends. Man, you're supporting them.
Yeah.
Like, don't be a cheap fuck. Like,
It ends up being fucking nothing. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, even if it's like the worst show on earth, like you're supporting your friends, like, and enjoy it, like, and for the ones who are wanting to risk getting in this industry as a musician, a DJ, an engineer, lighting, whatever you want to do in the music industry, it's so small, but it's also such a big family, and it's also like, go for it, risk it all. You got one life, man. Risk it all.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I can tell people, definitely being like an engineer, is like, one, don't shit on your engineers, because we can ruin your life real quick. We can make things suck for you pretty quickly. But at the same time, just there's so much in this industry you can do.
Yeah.
And it's such a big industry, but it's still so small, if that makes sense.
It does. I get what you mean there for sure. I mean, the music industry and nightlife industry is very big, but it's also a very small
world.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I'm so happy that we got to sit down today and talk about it, because I feel like people don't understand the behind the scenes and all the work that gets put into these shows. And like these, like, you can talk about the musicians all the time, but like, your engineers and your programmers and all that, there's a lot that takes, I think, it takes a lot of work and a lot of mind work and a lot of games and just struggles.
Yeah,
So,
next time you're in a venue, just kind of look around the stage, look at all the wiring, all the mics, all that kind of stuff, and take a look around at the lights, all that kind of shit that's actually going on aside from just the bar, just the music, because there's a shit ton. So
oh yeah, when you see a show at Bridgestone or any arena or amphitheater, look at everything that's put into it, because all that's not set up 24/7.
Oh yeah, it's
Like,
just coming in that day of putting all that shit up.
yeah, and sometimes engineers or musicians are grumpy because we only slept 3 hours on a bus.
Yeah.
On a little, like, small, like, cot.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm going to say thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
Like, this
Let
is
everybody
awesome.
know where they can follow you at.
Yeah.
Check you out on
so
social
it's-
media.
Yeah. I got Instagram mostly. It's James Myrick, JamesMyrick audio. I come up, like, if you follow pretty much half the people in Nashville, I'm definitely up there.
Yeah.
So, I got to get better at posting, like, shows and stuff and events.
We all do.
But, yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I have Facebook, James Myrick. Pretty easy if you know my last name. Like I said, it's Myrick. It's kind of weird. Just think of My and Rick and put it together. It's my last name. But, yeah, find me on social media. Like, if you see me at Whiskey Row, stop by, say hi. Like,
Yeah.
if I seem grumpy, it's not at you. It's I'm stressed about work or tired, exhausted. But yeah, no, I mean.
Well, I appreciate you stopping by, man, and finally getting the time to sit down, share
It
your
only took
insight.
us a little bit, but,
I know. Yeah, it took a week and a half, but
hey, but that's good. When it takes time,
Yeah.
that just means we're all busy and we're working. So.
absolutely, and that's a good thing. So, make sure for everyone watching, you go subscribe to the platform on YouTube. If you're more of just a listener, we got it out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. New episodes drop every Wednesday, so be sure to check those out. Platform Mix drops every Monday, so if you're looking at some new DJ mixes to get you through your week, your workout, your drive, whatever you need, those always drop every single Monday. Thank you again, James, for stopping by, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, support your local artists.
Check, mic check, 1, 2. Yo, is this thing on or what?